Hello, everyone. My name is Marita Canedo. I'm part of the Migrant Justice team, and I'm here to talk to you about Milk with Dignity. I'm going to pass it to my coworker, Will.
Hi everyone, my name is Will Lambeck. I'm also part of the Migrant Justice team, and Marita and I will be giving this presentation together. We're very excited to be here tonight.
Nice, yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I'm Guy from the Land Trust with Keegan from the library, and thank you for coming again to another one of the winter webinar series. I know it doesn't feel like winter outside, but it's going to feel like winter again tomorrow, I promise, or maybe like early spring. But thanks everyone for joining us. Yeah, as folks filter in, I'll just mention that this is the second to last in the series. We have one more event coming next Wednesday, which is a film showing of the documentary Farmsteaders. And we have a streaming link that we've purchased. So if you RSVP to the event, we'll send you the link to watch, and you'll be able to watch the video on your home computer over the next, I think, Friday to Wednesday. You'll have 5 days or so to watch that film. And then we're having a discussion with some farmers about the film and kind of what small farmers are going through right now across America and here in Vermont and really here in the islands especially. So that'll be next Wednesday, and I will put the link in the chat to our last event. Also mention if anyone has missed any of our previous events, we have been recording them, and we will also record this one, and those will be available on our YouTube pages. So the library has some of them hosted, we have some of them hosted, and I just created a playlist so you can see all of the winter webinar series. I have such a hard time with all those W's. The winter webinar series with the Worthen Library, and those will be on that playlist. So I'll put that link in the chat as well. So in case anyone is not able to make it to any of those previous events, you can check out the whole series there. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end, so that if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, which will be at the bottom of your screen. There's also a chat function. Feel free to use that as well. I will let you all take it away. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. So we're going to share our screen because we want to show you a little bit about, the conditions and the life and who we are. And so, yeah, first of all, welcome everyone. Thank you to you two for inviting us. We're really excited to present here today. And, if you have heard about Migrant Justice or have participated in any event or action, please let us know, and you can just type it, and then we will share with you, and you can share with us more about it. Well, do you want to go to the next slide?
Are you seeing the the first slide or the second? I'm getting a thing that says my screen sharing is paused. Let me try to.
Yeah, I just see a white screen.
Yeah.
Sorry about this. Let's try to figure it out. I'm gonna stop and start again.
There we go.
Perfect.
Thank you. So Migrant Justice, we are a grassroots organization founded and led by migrant farm workers in Vermont. Our mission is to build the voice, the capacity, and the power of the community and engage with allies as yourself to advance for human rights and economic justice. So when you think about Vermont, what do you think about it? Maybe the Green Mountains, the snow, the family farms, and many other things. But the reality is that there is a migrant community sustaining the dairy industry that have been invisible for years. And now we've been organizing for around 10 years for human rights. I want to mention that you might be familiar with the work of Migrant Justice, and maybe you have volunteered for a rapid response to Border Patrol checkpoints in South Hero. That has been a really important collaboration and something that we need to continue when we see Border Patrol activity increase in the area. So today's presentation focuses on milk with dignity and farm worker rights on farms. But please reach out directly if you're interested in talking about and learning more about migrant justice rapid response to immigration enforcement, because that's another big work that we need you to participate. Next slide. Thank you. So as I was saying, migrant justice started around 10 years ago. After a preventable death, a tragedy, Jose Obed Santis died on a preventable accident. He was 19, and his clothes got tangled to the manure scraper, and he was strangled to death. With his death, people around and in Vermont realized that there is all this immigrant community working invisible in the dairy farms. And that was the spark to start an organization and to have the people coming out of the shadows. So instead of doing things for them, people decided to give them the space and the tools to organize. And how do we organize? We connect through regional assemblies, where people come together to share food, stories, struggles, common problems. We do a lot of popular education and try to find collective solutions. That's how the community has set up a roadmap under human rights. And we organize for campaigns. During all these years, we had great achievements like driver's licenses. In Vermont, you can get a driver's license regardless of your immigration status. We have worked in stopping deportations and passed policies against racial profiling. We have the fair and impartial policy that puts a wall between police enforcement and immigration enforcement. We always maintain a focus on the right for fair work and dignified housing, because that was the main thing that people are living every day. So just to give you a little bit about how are the conditions in the life in the farms. Next slide, please. So immigrants sustain the dairy industry in Vermont and around the country. We conducted 2 surveys around almost 300 workers, and the results said that 80 to 90% of non-family workers on dairy farms in Vermont are immigrant. There is year-round work, which has not access to guest worker visas. That's not something that people are looking for. The farms here are smaller compared to other states. They are isolated, and people stay invisible. So even that Vermont is not one of the biggest dairy states in the country, there is a big industry for the state. So farms provide housing. People live where they work, and they work where they live. This creates dynamics where there is all housing. Sometimes 2 or 3 people share one room. Sometimes 2 people are sharing a bed. Sometimes there is no clean water. Having a winter that might last 6 months, not having heating in the house is a big problem, not good insulation, pests. And also there is a high percentage of accidents and injuries with chemicals, heavy machinery, working with animals is dangerous. Lack of protection and access to healthcare is not something that is accessible for immigrants. And also lack of labor protections, because people are exposed to sexual harassment, gender discrimination, unjust firings, stolen wages, and even human trafficking. We know that there are good farms out there. We don't want to say every farm is bad, but we know that it doesn't have to be like that. And we did a study and an analysis with the community. Why are the conditions like this? So even when farms try to do right by their workers, the economic challenge that they face are big to improve the conditions. So we need to understand the situation at its root. And we have to look at the industry structure. The industry has, corporate supply chains. You can see the pyramid there. On the bottom are the workers, in the middle are the co-ops, the processors, but who's taking all the money are the corporations. They buy the milk, control the industry, and when there are few buyers with more power, they can lower the price of the milk, and that creates a downward pressure on labor conditions. If you check the price of milk today, it's still as it was on the 70s, but we know that the cost of life is not the same. So we know that workers and farmers share many of the same interests in transforming this industry. The companies have to take the responsibility for being part of the solution. And what is the solution? So we created a program to bring a new day to the dairy industry. This program solves the problem at its roots. This program solves the problem at its roots because it includes the entire supply chain. How does it work? Migrant Justice signs a legally binding agreement with corporations for them to take responsibility for the conditions in their supply chain. These corporations commit to buy from farms in the program and pay a premium to them. When the farms receive this premium and commit to use it to comply with a code of conduct, this code of conduct has been written by the workers themselves. The code creates standards for wages, hours of rest, housing, health and safety, creates protections against harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. It really represents the community's definition of dignified work. These standards cannot be meaningful if people don't know about them or they don't understand how to comply or ask questions about it. So Migrant Justice educate workers and everybody in the farm about the program, the rights and the responsibilities. With these, workers are empowered to become the frontline defenders of their rights. And to ensure that these standards are in compliance, MJ created an independent organization to monitor the conditions, to respond to complaints, and regularly audit all farms in the program. This independent organization is called the Milk with Dignity Standards Council. They are investigators that are bilingual, they are local, and they are a tool for farmers and farm workers to talk to each other and bring the solutions that they see are the best. Also, the Milk with Dignity Standards Council are the teeth of this program because they are sure that the premium is used as it should be, and the farm is compliant. If the farm doesn't comply, it can go into probation and then suspension. And we don't want that because we want all to participate. So the Milk with Dignity program is part of a global model that brings social change. This model is called Worker-Driven Social Responsibility, WSR. It's happening in many countries, and sector workers are learning the same lessons of how to advance rights within corporate supply chains. We have learned about this model from the CIW, the Coalition of Immobility Workers, and the Fair Food Program in Florida. They work with tomatoes and other vegetables. They already have 14 agreements today with companies. So they came to Vermont, we went to Florida, and we adapt their program to dairy because, for example, a standard for tomato pickers is they need shade while they are working, and dairy is completely different. So with all these other organizations, we form a network to support worker exchanges, foster learning between organizations. And some of the examples are the garment workers in Bangladesh that are targeting global fashion brands in the Fire Safety Accord. There are other construction workers in Minnesota targeting developers, building dignity and respect, and many more. Because we know that united by the model, organizing in supply chains, winning contracts with corporations, implementing programs designed by workers themselves, we have created a program, and now we had to put it in practice. And that's how we came in deciding our first campaign and the first corporation we were going to invite to be part of the program. So we invited to Ben & Jerry's. And Ben & Jerry's, you know, very local ice cream, well-known all over the world. We brought the solution to them, and at the beginning, they didn't accept. They didn't see themselves responsible for the farm workers in their supply chain because they don't hire them directly. So it took us almost 3 years of a public pressure and campaign and conversations, being on the table with them. Some of the actions were protests in front of the stores. We did street theater. We were picketing their board meeting. We had a 13-mile march to their factory, and we went on to a speaking tour. So we put more pressure, and finally, October 3rd, 2017, they signed the first meal with dignity agreement, which was a historic moment. It was the first time in history that corporations sat across the table and signed an agreement with dairy workers. Today, we have implemented the program in 100% of the Northeast supply chain. It covers around 250 workers, which is 20% of the industry in Vermont, plus some farms in New York. Migrant Justice is going to the farms, giving education sessions about the rights and responsibilities of the program. The Milk with Dignity Standards Council is monitoring the farms, ensuring compliance. And hundreds of thousands have flown directly from Ben & Jerry's into the workers' pockets in the form of raises, bonuses, paid vacations, and more. And more is going to the farms as economic relief for the low prices of milk. We can say the new day has arrived, and I wanted to see you and look at the agreement that we have that on the picture. When you see the side of Ben & Jerry's, you see one signature is the CEO. But when you see the side of Migrant Justice, you see plenty of signatures because those are our coordination committee, those are our leaders. And then you can see how this is a grassroots movement that is led by the workers themselves. They are signing the agreement, they are all together, it's a collective effort. So now we're gonna share a video with you all about testimonies of workers under the program. It has subtitles, and I invite you to think about and maybe write down some comments or questions that you have and responses about the video.
Mi trabajo empezando pues nos levantamos a la mañana, llegamos, prendemos las máquinas, arreglamos todo, sacamos las vacas del corral, las metemos para ordeñar. Es todo lo que se hace en un día normal, pero que hay ranchos que trabajan de 12 horas corridas, le dan media hora de comida de las 12 horas, eso está más pesado.
¿Por qué es necesario? Porque es importante para nosotros como trabajadores que salimos de nuestra casa para mejorar nuestras vidas, no para estar viviendo como te dijera, en condiciones que meramente ya no son humanas.
Pero sin el programa nosotros pues no nos aumentaban el sueldo y pues del día de descanso ni se hablara. No sabíamos qué derechos o qué podemos exigir nosotros como trabajadores.
Pues antes aquí no nos tomaban en cuenta como cuando nos enfermábamos. Ni nos llevaban al doctor y pues ese día lo teníamos que trabajar. Y si no lo trabajábamos, pues ese día pues era descontado prácticamente. Y pues ahora bajo el programa de Leche con Dignidad, no lo trabajamos y pues aparte no nos pagan y pues ya los patrones nos llevan al doctor y pues eso es muy importante para mí, para nosotros.
Bueno, se siente uno más protegido porque ya sabe uno puede, o sea, ellos te orientan a lo que puede pasar, tus derechos que tú tienes como trabajador. El derecho que tienes, el respeto tanto de tu patrón, se siente uno más feliz, más protegido.
Si un día yo, por ejemplo, cuando voy a tirar cal en los grupos o hacer el agua de las patas, no tengo las mascarillas, los guantes, todo lo que necesito para que no me dañe mi salud. Entonces ya el patrón tiene que acceder a comprar las cosas.
Ahora ya tenemos un día completo, que antes no se tenía. Bueno, ahora que tengo mi bebé, pues ya pasamos más tiempo con ella. Ya tenemos por lo menos un día para estar con ella todo el día. Se siente uno más seguro por todos los beneficios, pues, y saber todos nuestros derechos.
Mediante el programa se ha hecho posible tener una casa nueva, porque antes estábamos en una traila que estábamos más amontonados, 2 personas en un cuarto, poco espacio. Entonces aquí la nueva vivienda pues ha cambiado demasiado porque todo es nuevo.
Hay algunas personas que le dan miedo para hablar con los dueños o exigirle algo que ocupan o cualquier cosa, ya sea porque pues tienen miedo porque los corran o algo así, los despidan del trabajo. Con el programa nos hace trabajar mejor, más a gusto, más en confianza con los dueños, sabiendo cuáles son nuestros derechos, o sea, de no ser humillado o decir o que te digan cosas que te ofendan. O sea, hay muchos ranchos que pasa eso y por el programa ya no puede pasar eso. Como los del rancheros también se benefician mucho por el programa. Así yo creo que ambos tienen un gran beneficio, como nosotros, un gran beneficio entre ambos.
Y para mí es muy importante que expanda el programa porque por eso el patrón le apoyan a él, pero también como nosotros como trabajadores tenemos esa voz de ya decir, sabes, quiero un día de descanso, quiero que hagas esto, y eso es algo necesario para cada trabajador, para que nosotros nos sintamos seguros en decir algo, no nos sintamos con miedo, sintamos la seguridad de decirle al patrón, sabes qué, quiero esto, y ya no tengamos tanto miedo a ellos.
All right. So as I said at the beginning, and for those who came in late, my name is Will Lambeck, and I'm a colleague of Maritha's at Migrant Justice. So you all just heard some really powerful statements and powerful testimony from workers who are in the Milk with Dignity program. They're among the more than 250 farm workers in our state and in New York who are benefiting from this transformational new program. And as Maritha said, it covers about 20% of the dairy industry in the state, which is a great start. But 20% means that there are still many farm workers who are not benefiting from the protections of Milk with Dignity. And what does that look like? Just to share one example, and as you can see, there's an example that got some news. A dairy worker named Jose, working on a farm in Addison County. He had been there for quite some time, and he had his wages stolen. He wasn't paid for a week that he worked. And when he went to ask for his stolen wages, the boss threw him off the farm. He called Migrant Justice, and twice we went back with him to try to speak with the farm owner and ask for his wages back. And the second time he was met with physical violence. He was literally pushed out the door by the farm owner, and the Migrant Justice organizer who went with him was assaulted as well. So Jose took action and with his community marched on the farm, and he actually ended up getting a ruling from the Vermont Department of Labor that his wages were stolen, and the Department of Labor ordered the farm to pay him for the wages that had been stolen. But even though it's been more than a year since this happened, and he's had that ruling, he still has yet to get that money. So that really shows the difference between what's possible in the program and what's possible outside. If this had been a Milk with Dignity farm, this never would have happened. If there had been a dispute over wages, he would have been able to go to the Milk with Dignity Standards Council, who would have supported him and held the farm employers responsible. And if he had been subject to violence, like he was, that would have been what's called a zero tolerance violation, which means that the farm would have been suspended from the program and would have lost their ability to sell within Ben & Jerry's supply chain, losing all the program's premiums. And so there are real market consequences when farm owners abuse their workers. This never would have happened if Jose's farm had been covered by Milk with Dignity. And that really underscores the urgent and drastic need for why we need to expand this program. So in 2018, we implemented the program. And then in 2019, we began to look around and analyze the dairy industry and think, where could we expand? What would be another buyer or another company that purchases dairy that we could approach to invite to join Ben & Jerry's and Milk with Dignity? And I think, as many of you know, we came upon Hannaford Supermarket. So I think all of you on this call, on this Zoom, will know Hannaford. You have a couple of different options. You can go shop up in Swanton or down in St. Albans. And around the region, there are close to 200 Hannaford stores. And that means that they're one of the major buyers of dairy from Vermont and really from all of New England and the Northeast. And in addition to that, Hannaford is they're owned by this huge conglomerate called Ahold Delhaize, which owns a bunch of supermarkets. And Ahold Delhaize is bringing in close to $100 billion in sales a year. So we know that this is a company that can afford to take responsibility for the conditions in their supply chain. And on top of that, Ahold Delhaize has made commitments that they expect, that they have what's called a responsible retailing program, that they have expectations for suppliers treating workers fairly. And so by approaching Hannaford to join Milk with Dignity, all we're really asking them to do is to walk the talk. And when Hannaford joins, we know it's going to have a huge impact in the lives of dairy workers in Vermont and beyond. So in the summer of 2019, we began inviting Hannaford to join, but when they didn't respond, in the fall, 2 years to the date after Ben & Jerry's joined the Milk with Dignity program, we launched a public campaign, publicly calling on Hannaford to join and asking for consumers around the region and supporters around the country to stand in solidarity with dairy workers and asking Hannaford to take this important step. And this photo you see is from a march on a Hannaford store in Burlington on the day of that campaign launch, when dozens of dairy workers and dairy farmers as well, who were benefiting from the program, came out to ask Hannaford to join Ben & Jerry's. So since that launch, there's been a number of actions to try to ratchet up the pressure on Hannaford. A month after this march, you saw, there were simultaneous actions at 22 Hannaford stores around the country, handing in letters to managers, asking the CEO to sit down with Migrant Justice. There have been a number of national organizations and faith communities that have written letters to the Hannaford CEO, calling on them to join the program. We've had thousands of customers sign petitions, write letters, sign postcards to the Hannaford president saying it's time to join Milk with Dignity. But just as the campaign was ratcheting up, COVID hit. And we were actually in the middle of a 2-week regional tour. We were going to go to over 20 different cities around the region to talk about the Milk with Dignity campaign when we had to cancel it because of the pandemic. And we know that the pandemic has really deeply impacted a lot of, well, all of us, but in particular, dairy workers who have been recognized as essential workers during the pandemic. And this country has really shown the hypocrisy of a system where farm workers are required to be working throughout the pandemic because their work is seen as essential. Without farm workers, we don't have food on the tables, but at the same time, they're being excluded from so many benefits and labor protections, and continue to suffer from the poor conditions that you heard about. And in some ways, those conditions have become much worse under the pandemic for workers outside the program. So we knew that we had to continue the campaign, even if it was at a distance. And so we've been doing other things like national call-in days, where hundreds of people have been calling into Hannaford's on certain days and demanding that the company join the Milk with Dignity program. And we've continued to get national endorsements. And all of that is having a big impact. Hannaford's has still yet to respond positively. They've yet to agree to join the program, but we know that they're feeling the pressure from the demand of so many thousands of their customers who are calling on them to do what's right. Last year, we presented at the annual meeting of the shareholders of Ahold Delhaize. Again, that's the big conglomerate that owns Hannaford. And we asked the company outright, why are you ignoring dairy workers? And why are you shirking your responsibility for the rights and well-being of the farm workers behind Hannaford brand milk? And in response to that, and in response to all the pressure, they've had a lot of statements saying that they expect their suppliers to follow the law. They expect their suppliers to treat workers fairly. They've made lots of donations, trying to get positive press from their charitable efforts. But we know that that sort of charity and those sort of statements are just Band-Aids and are meaningless if they don't really step up to the plate and join this program, which has a proven track record of success in ensuring the protection for the human rights of farm workers. So we have continued to put pressure on Hannaford and have done so in a number of ways. And one of the things that we have done during the campaign to show the continuing success of the program is that in October of last year, now 1 year to the date after we launched the campaign calling on Hannaford to join Milk with Dignity, we released the program's first biennial report. And this is a huge document, and we'll share the link with you at the end of this presentation. And the report really exhaustively documents the incredible and transformational impact of Milk with Dignity in ensuring farm workers' human rights. And not only that, but also supporting farm owners themselves through the premium that they're receiving from Ben & Jerry's. And we won't have time to get into everything that's in the report today, but this just gives a little snapshot of some of the things that are contained here. So this tells you a little bit about the premium, the impact it's having. So in the first 2 years, over $1 million in workers' pockets, directly in bonuses and wage raises, paid vacation, sick leave, housing improvements, etc. And then on top of that, farm owners are getting premium funds as well as economic relief to recognize the way that farmers and farm workers alike have been taken advantage of by this system, the pyramid that you saw at the beginning, where corporations are able to make a profit while workers and farmers suffer. And you can see that this quote on your screen as well. We wouldn't want to work anywhere else. It wouldn't be the same after working at a farm with Milk with Dignity. So please do go to our website and check out this report. There's a ton of incredible information, and it really shows the unique way that Milk with Dignity has been able to have an impact in a way that no other supply chain program in the dairy industry can claim. Migrant Justice is a small group of farm workers. We're a tiny grassroots organization, and we're taking on a multinational corporation with nearly $100 billion annually in sales. So how are we gonna win this fight? And the answer is with your support, by uniting workers and consumers. We have the power to bring companies to the table and force them to take action that they otherwise wouldn't, force them to take responsibility by joining the Milk with Dignity program. And the way that we do this is by showing the company that the cost of not joining Milk with Dignity is going to be higher than the cost of joining. And so it's our job collectively to raise that cost of continuing to ignore their responsibility and ignore farm workers. And you can help us do that by putting pressure on them. This toolkit that you see, this is also on the Migrant Justice website and has a bunch of information about the different ways that you can put pressure directly on Hannaford by going to the store and speaking with managers, or something that you can do right now during the presentation is by going to Hannaford's Facebook page. So as I'm speaking, I invite all of you to pull up Facebook if you have an account on your smartphone or on your computer. Go to the Hannaford Supermarket Facebook page, and you can see some examples here. These are farm workers who have, under one of Hannaford's posts, posted a picture of themselves and a statement calling on Hannaford to join Milk with Dignity. And allies, consumers, can do this as well. So just go to the most recent post on Hannaford's Facebook page and take a second to write a message of solidarity saying, Hannaford, join Milk with Dignity, Hannaford, protect farm workers, Hannaford, take action by joining this program, or you can personalize it as well. If you're a Hannaford customer, talk about how important it is for you as a consumer to know that you can go to Hannaford and buy milk without violating the human rights of the farm workers who are behind that milk. So I hope that as I'm speaking, everybody who does have a Facebook account is going and taking that action right now. And that's a way of putting pressure directly on the company, but also raising awareness for other customers who are going to the Facebook page to check out a recipe or to see when store hours are. And then they become educated about this campaign and about the need for Hannaford to join Milk with Dignity. And now, the last thing that I want to leave you with is an upcoming action to take in person. So as we slowly come out of this pandemic, we're ramping back up the in-person campaign. And on May Day, which is International Workers' Day, this May 1st, we're calling an action. At noon, there will be a rally at the State House with a bunch of other labor organizations and unions talking about workers' rights more broadly and uniting different worker struggles. And then after the rally at the State House at 2 o'clock, we'll be meeting at the Hannaford in Barrie, Vermont, 2 p.m. at the Barrie Hannaford. And we'll be taking action in front of the store to continue to put pressure on the company and let them know that they can't hide from their responsibility to farm workers. So again, that's this May 1st. It's a Saturday this year, noon at the Montpelier State House, 2 p.m. at the Barrie Hannaford. So with that, we want to wrap it up, and we're going to stop the screen share and open it up for questions. Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing I wanted to share is that prior to the May Day action, we're going to be having an art making session. If you want to help create beautiful art, banners, posters, we'll be meeting at the Migrant Justice office on Wednesday, April 28th. We'll put that in the chat as well, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Feel free to swing by for some socially distanced art making. We'll be painting banners and signs in preparation for May Day. So with that, we want to thank everybody for being at this presentation. We're really honored to be invited to present during this series. Here you can see our different social media, the website, migrantjustice.net, which we've referenced a couple times. Head there to check out the Milk with Dignity report or the campaign toolkit, and make sure to follow us on social media if you do that type of thing. And now I will stop the screen share and open it up for questions, comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was really great. A lot of great information there. We had a couple questions come in. One from Susan Ryan. How many injuries occur on the farms each year? Do the workers receive health care for injuries? And why doesn't it cover more than 20%? And Keegan, sorry, I realized you were going to ask the first question. So I'll ask this one, sorry, and I'll kick it to you for the next one. So, sorry about that.
All right. Do you want to take that, Marita?
So I just was going to say, I think you asked 3 questions in one question. One is how many injuries? There is no exact data about that, but we know that, for example, 85% of workers report harm to themselves around environmental risk. We know that 78% of workers reported being hurt or affected by an animal-related risk. Access to, and there are other things about, 83% of workers reported experience harm from chemical exposure. But access to healthcare is something that it's not available for an immigrant farm worker. So there are some programs that help people connect to some clinics and help them to go through the process of paying bills and all that. We support sometimes with workers' comp, but that's why it's also important, the expansion of the Milk with Dignity program, because farms under the Milk with Dignity program would not only support people with workers' comp, but also will work in prevention and having all this, the whole thing look at it. I think the second question was why only 20%? So right now we have one contract with Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's supplies with 20% of the dairy in Vermont. So that's why the program only covers 20%. And that's why we need the expansion. I don't know, Will, if you want to add something else.
No, yeah, I think that covers it well.
Okay, and Robert asked, is the Milking with Dignity program open to all farms, whether they employ undocumented immigrants or not?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that's really great about the Milk with Dignity program, is that this is something that has been created by immigrant farm workers in the state, but it's benefiting workers regardless of whether they're immigrants or whether they're born here in Vermont or U.S. citizens. And so there are Vermont-born farm workers all across the state right now who are working on Milk with Dignity farms, who are getting higher wages, increased protections, because of the courage and action of their immigrant coworkers and immigrant neighbors. So our organization, Migrant Justice, is founded and led by immigrant farm workers, but the Milk with Dignity program covers any qualifying worker on any farm that is part of the program that's within the supply chain of a participating buyer.
Yeah, I think that was all the questions we have. If anyone has any more questions, feel free. This is the time to get to chat with these folks. It's great. It's a great opportunity. While we're waiting for folks to think of a couple more questions, we did create a feedback form. So we want, I'll put that in the chat. So if anyone wants to fill it out, that'd be very helpful. We'd love to hear feedback from folks. Just take a minute or so to fill it out. I really appreciate help us design our event series. If we're waiting, we'll wait maybe another minute for that question. Folks, feel free to put them in the chat. I also wanted to, oh, Jacqueline, is there any opportunity to lobby for new policies? If so, what does that look like?
I mean, I can say something. The Milk with Dignity campaign is something that's a corporate campaign. It's not a legislative campaign, and we decided to go that path because even that when we win things on the legislation, we know the enforcement mechanism is lacking or sometimes the funding. Right now, the only policy that we're checking is the fair and impartial policy, and that every year we need to update it and monitor. Well, do you have anything else that we're going to be talking on the legislation locally?
Yeah, I mean, Migrant Justice does work on different aspects of legislation, fighting back against discriminatory policies and trying to advance equity in the state, whether it's in healthcare, where we currently have a bill to expand access to Dr. Dinosaur to non-citizen children and pregnant people. We also have tried to and have successfully advanced equity in COVID relief. As many of you will know, many immigrant families were excluded from the federal government's stimulus programs during the pandemic, and Vermont became the first state in the country to guarantee parity payments, equitable payments to all immigrant families in the state who were excluded from that first round of COVID stimulus. So those are a couple of the things that we work on locally here in Vermont. And on the federal level, particularly now with a relatively new presidential administration, Congress, we are very much fighting for a comprehensive immigration reform that provides permanent protection for all immigrants in the country. But we would say that while documentation status can be one element of the way in which workers can be exploited or have their rights denied, it's not the only reason. And if tomorrow there were to be a comprehensive immigration reform, immigrants on Vermont dairy farms would still be getting paid below minimum wage, would still be living in substandard and at times deplorable housing, would still be working 7 days a week without a day off and lacking protections against sexual harassment and gender discrimination. All of those things are baked into the ways that the food system, and in this case, the dairy system, is set up. So immigration reform is needed, it's urgent, but it doesn't replace the need for programs like Milk with Dignity, which ensure rights regardless of immigration status.
And I see a question from Karen saying, how do we join a rapid response action? So I think we're gonna start having trainings and talk more, but if specifically you wanna send an email to info@migrantjustice.net or sign up on the Get Involved part in our webpage, put in the note that you wanna be part of the rapid response training and team, that's the best way to get connected directly to that.
And Susan asked, do you ever think Vermont would pass a law to allow workers to come legally each year without fear of being deported?
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, Vermont couldn't. It's a federal a question of federal policy, so there's not a state law that could allow for that.
And I had a question. Obviously, there's a lot left to do with the milk and the farm industry. Are there other industries in Vermont or other types of farms that you would like to target in the future? Or you're not thinking that far ahead?
Well, Migrant Justice is primarily an organization of dairy workers, and most farm workers in the state are dairy workers. Vermont is sort of uniquely reliant on its dairy industry. I think about 2/3 of all agricultural income in the state comes from dairy farms. So we do have members who don't work on dairy farms, but the vast majority of them do. And that's where we see the most pressing and urgent need for human rights protections.
Yeah, not to say if we get a phone call from somebody that needs support in another area, we will do that. And also, we've been doing trainings of Know Your Rights in the past years for many immigrant workers that weren't only on dairy. I also want to say to Jacqueline Posley, you're a paralegal and happy to volunteer. Yeah, again, sign up on the Get Involved part of our webpage, adding that you're a paralegal and have some knowledge about that, and we can find projects to work with you.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for putting everything in the chat. I've been kind of copying those, and we'll send a follow-up email to everyone. So I'll kind of include these links and things that'll go out to everybody. So, you know, if you haven't had a chance to copy those down from the chat, but thank you all for keeping those in there. I'm just going to copy that right now. Any other questions from anyone?
Yeah, and we hope to see you on May Day this year in Montpelier or in Barrie. We hope that folks have taken the opportunity to go to Hannaford Supermarket's Facebook page. If you haven't done it yet because you wanted to give us your full attention during the presentation, that's great. And you can do it when we log off. So you just go to Facebook, search Hannaford Supermarket, and under the first post you see, just put a comment under that post asking them to join Milk with Dignity and adding whatever additional comment you want.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. This has been really great. I've definitely learned a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing what more work can be done and how we can support you. This is really exciting work that you're all doing. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you for the time too to be able to come and join us. We really appreciate it. One thing I forgot to mention was we want to thank the American Libraries Association for funding for this program. I forgot to mention that at the top, but that was very helpful for this program. And then I'll just throw once more our next event in the chat, so you can sign up for that, which is a film showing, and that will be an interesting film because it does involve kind of an intimate look at small farms and what they're going through right now. So it'd be an interesting continuation of this conversation. So yeah, I mean, is there anything else you have to add, Keegan? Thank you all so much again for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we just feel very grateful for your time and all of your efforts. Thank you for speaking with us tonight.
Thank you, Keegan. Thank you, guys. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, have a great night.
Have a great night. See you on May Day.
Yeah.